Funding for Idaho Reports is provided by the Friends of 4, 10, and 12, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by a grant from the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation.
With Idaho wilderness legislation pending in the Congress and plans to restore Idaho's salmon and steelhead runs being developed in the Northwest, increasing attention is being paid to Idaho's fish and wildlife resources. Tonight, Keith Stonebreaker, the Idaho Fish and Game Commission chairman, joins us for a conversation. Good evening. The Idaho Fish and Game Commission is holding its regular meeting in Boise today and tomorrow. Among the issues on the Commission's agenda are such matters as a review of plans to manage ocean-running salmon and steelhead populations in Idaho, regulations governing falconry in the state, and the Department's policies concerning a controversial decision to distribute an Idaho Sportsman's Coalition brochure, along with state big game regulations earlier this year. Those are some of the issues we'll be discussing tonight with Keith Stonebreaker, the current chairman of the Fish and Game Commission in Idaho. Mr. Stonebreaker is in his 10th year on the commission. He lives in Lewiston. Good to have you here, sir. Thank you. Let me start with an area that the commission has been involved in and a great many other Idahoans are involved in at the moment, and that's wilderness and the pending legislation in the Congress. A number of people are saying pessimistically that an Idaho wilderness bill is dead for this session of the Congress, but you told the Idaho Press Club here today that that is not your view of that situation. Am I right?
Well, it depends on the upper limit. I think there's an upper limit as regards to what our Idaho congressional delegation will go, and it's anybody's best guess as what it is, but I don't believe that our congressional delegation wants to see this thing tabled for another year. So I think that, and it's purely supposition, that I feel that if it goes somewhere between 1.5 to 1.8 million acres, that we may have legislation.
That Senator McClure and the rest of the delegation might go that high?
No, I'm just guessing. It's supposition, but I don't think that they want to see it tabled for another year.
That would be reasonably close. The upper end of that scale would be right at what the commission has endorsed.
It's pretty close. We're pretty close to 1.75 or 1.8.
And that would be, from your standpoint, I guess, would be a great compromise.
We would be very happy with it.
Why do we need that much officially protected additional wilderness in Idaho?
Well, you say that much, but basically what we're talking about is maybe that little. You can put it in that context because it's only about 12% of what's available out there. So what Fish and Game looks at is purely the wildlife resource out there, and we're talking also about the stream quality, which goes right along with the wildlife resource. So that's basically our interest in this. The aesthetics, that issue belongs to somebody else, the other user groups, but basically we are interested in the fish and game in those particular areas.
If you can quantify for me what the trade-offs would be if we don't go with that much wilderness designation.
Well, I think the trade-offs would be lower water quality, and right now we're right in the middle of rebuilding our fish runs, our salmon and steelhead runs, and trying to restore our cutthroat populations, our West Slope cutthroat, which were endangered. And I think we would be talking about the possibility of stopping the ball game in the middle of the fifth inning if we didn't continue on and protect some of these areas.
So would I be right to say that over a course of time that we would see a deterioration in the quality of wildlife in this state if we did not have that much officially protected
I think
wilderness?
it's without question. We're getting a larger fishing and hunting public every year, and the demand for more fish and game resource is there, and we've been successful in bringing back the elk population and the deer population. We're in the throes of bringing back the steelhead population. Hopefully, maybe a decade down the line, we could enjoy some good salmon fishing. And we're doing a pretty good job of bringing back these resources, so we don't want to stop it now.
What do you say to those, though, who, and there are a lot of people apparently in Idaho who believe that by going above what the congressional delegation has proposed, say a little over 500,000 acres, that going above that very much would endanger jobs?
Well, they've never had that case proven even on paper. We're talking perhaps 2% more allowable cut if they got their 500,000 acres as opposed to the acreage that we're proposing. Furthermore, the demand for lumber right now is they're in a backlog situation where they can't, if they do cut it, they can't sell it. So we feel that they're trying to buy time because they actually had over-harvested years ago, and they're trying to buy 30 years growth time.
By they, you mean the timber industry?
The timber industry. And frankly, they'll probably buy time anyway, despite themselves, due to the fact that there's no demand for those logs.
So we're really not, by going somewhere close to what the Fish and Game Commission has proposed for wilderness, we're not impacting those natural resource industries in Idaho.
Not in the slightest. And certainly a case could be made if Fish and Game came out for the full 8 million acres. But to say that 1.8 million acres is going to make a world of difference as far as the timber industry goes is just a false argument as far as we're concerned.
You know, there are those who also argue that building roads into some of these areas is not all that bad from even a management standpoint, that it allows some management practices to take place. It allows sportsmen's access to these areas. Some truth to that, isn't there?
Oh, it depends on the actual situation. We could show the facts that indicate, for instance, on Kelly Creek as an example, we have a situation where the roaded portion of Kelly Creek has approximately 50% less cutthroat population than the unroaded areas. We could also show you that the latest studies in elk harvesting and elk population densities that indicate that the unroaded areas have a much higher density of elk than the roaded portions. Also, a lot of it is how you handle the roads. Certainly, if the Forest Service was going to build a road from point A to point B for recreation, they would certainly build the road differently than they build logging roads. The logging roads aren't meant to be very stable. We have problems with them washing out and blowing out after rainstorms and after large snowfalls. And we have some very serious impacts on soil erosion and therefore water quality as a result of the way the roads have been built by the Forest Service. So quite frankly, I'd have to that particular argument, I'd say that I'd say no.
Why do you think, Mr. Stonebreaker, there is so much lack of consensus, so little consensus, and so much polarization on this issue? I believe you heard today even from some northern Idaho folks about the wilderness. Why is there so much polarization and so little consensus on what we ought to do?
I believe there's a lot of heavy personalities involved in this issue. We have our congressional delegation. We have the timber industry that is promoting no wilderness, basically. We have those personalities involved, and then we have somebody with a high profile like Fish and Game saying that we do need some roadless areas, that we do need some wilderness areas. And when you have the people that can get the attention of the public, you're going to polarize certain portions of the public. You have people in some areas that are afraid for their jobs. It's a natural thing. And frankly, we find
But you're saying that they shouldn't be afraid for their jobs.
Well, there's going to be some changes in jobs regardless of what occurs in this wilderness issue, because the wilderness is not impacting the industry that much in the state. I think the case could be proven there. You have a situation, though, that we're going to have some changes the way sawmills will be operated in the future. We're going to have a viable wood fiber industry in the state probably forever, and I'm talking about paper making, pulp making, wood fiber, particle board, and that sort of thing. I think no matter what happens as regards to wilderness, we're going to see the sawmills in the future probably go to the south where trees are grown like corn and grown like a crop, because they can grow trees there 3 times faster than they can grow them here. I think it only makes sense. But I think we're going to have a viable wood fiber industry in the state forever.
But again, it's better than even money shot that there'll be a bill that passes the Congress?
Oh, I think it's a good 50-50 chance that it will pass.
And it would be, I take it again in your view, a compromise that not everyone would get all that they want, but it would be a compromise.
I think that's a case could be made for a good agreement when nobody on either side really fully agrees.
A slightly different subject. The Commission was roundly criticized recently by some members of the state legislature for mailing out a flyer produced by the Idaho Sportsmen's Coalition,
Right.
A group that has been very active in this wilderness debate. Was that a bad policy call on someone's part to include that with the big game regulations?
Oh, I don't particularly think that it was a bad policy call. We try to do these nonpartisan groups a favor from time to time. Whether it be the Boy Scouts or the Future Farmers of America or the Optimist Club or whatever it might be. We try to do these nonpartisan groups a favor, and this is purely, from what we understand, a nonpartisan group. It has some highly esteemed individuals that believe that these wildlife issues should be taken out of politics, and that's their firm belief, probably it's, I don't think there's any conflict there.
As a matter of fact, though, they have taken a very public position on how much wilderness ought to be officially designated, right?
Well, is that a partisan issue or not? The point is this, that here we have a Republican congressional delegation that doesn't want any more wilderness, and yet we have a number of people that belong to this coalition that are diehard Republicans who want some more wilderness. So basically, I would say that they're a nonpartisan group.
So you wouldn't, I take it, rule out doing similar sorts of mailings in the future?
I don't think we're going to rule that out. You know, where do you draw the line? There's a lot of people that, like I say, that don't have any partisan beliefs but need some help along the line, and if Fish and Game can help them, so be it.
Well, I think that, as I understand some of the criticism from some legislators, and I've at least seen one letter that Representative Edwards from Donnelly wrote to Mr. Christensen, who's on the commission, saying that that is the issue. Where do you draw the line? Should a state agency be in the business of sending out whatever kind of information for any group?
Well, if that issue that we're going to send information out for has nothing to do with Fish and Game resources, then I say that's where you draw the line. But if it has to do with Fish and Game resource matters, then I say, so be it. I think we should perhaps help them out.
What if the group, I don't want to belabor this point, but what if the group were to take a position that the Commission didn't agree with on a Fish and Game issue, which there certainly are groups that don't always agree with your decision?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm being criticized by my friends in the Idaho Wildlife Federation, thinking that this group will conflict with their group.
The Sportsmen's Coalition.
That's right,
okay.
Thinking that it might take away a lot of the impact from Idaho Wildlife Federation. So those are the kind of criticisms you have to live with.
What will the effect be of this little flap on the part of legislators who might not have an inclination to be terribly supportive of the Department of Fish and Game anyway?
Well, you know, the legislators from time to time ask us, they come to us, and if they have a problem in their immediate area, they ask us for favors and ask us to resolve problems in their areas. In fact, Senator McLaughlin is over at the Commission at this moment asking for us to readjust some of the boundaries on the wilderness bill. and she's asking us to help her out in her particular region. And you know, I don't know if we will or not. It depends on the consensus of the commission. So I don't see the difference between a state legislator asking us for some help in their area and then trying to help out some nonpartisan group.
Concerning the subject of the legislature's criticism of the department's activities, some people in the legislature have been critical in the past of your informational and educational programs. Specifically, I think the magazine, the Fish and Game Department's magazine. How valuable is that magazine to your efforts to educate and inform?
Well, I think the magazine is extremely valuable. Our only problem right now is that we should have 3 times the circulation. But it hasn't, I don't think that magazine has offended very many people. In fact, some of our old critics subscribe and read that thing from page to page. And I haven't heard any criticism of the magazine itself.
I'm not sure that anyone criticizes the magazine as much as they criticize what it costs.
Well, that's
and
right.
the fact that it's not self-supporting.
Absolutely, and we feel, the commission has always felt that the magazine should be self-supporting, and I think we should take steps to make it so. I think we've dropped the ball in the past to get the magazine out into circulation in many different ways. For example, I think the magazine should be out on the newsstands and be made available right along with the commercial magazines such as Outdoor Life and Sports Afield and whatever else.
Why doesn't that happen?
I feel that we're going to have to take steps to make sure that that happens. I feel that there's many other ways that magazine could be sent out to the public. Put in welcome wagons, new people into Idaho. Put in the commuter airlines coming in and out of the state. I feel that we could drum up a lot of support that way.
The department is also producing a television show right here on public television that's aired statewide on a monthly basis, and at least a couple members of the legislature are wondering whether that's a good way to spend sportsmen's money.
Well, I feel it's one of the best ways to communicate with the public, and I absolutely have no argument with that. I think that telecommunication is absolutely the finest way to allow the sportsmen and the other interested people in the state to see what the department is doing. We don't want to hide under a cloak or behind a screen, so to speak. We want the public to know what we're doing and some of our new ideas and what we've had too many things in the past that have only earmarked in on our weak points. We'd like to show our strong points too. We've made great gains, like I mentioned, in elk and deer and steelhead and some of our transplants with mountain sheep and so forth. Why not show our good points? And we want to communicate with the people and let them know what we're doing with their money.
Let's talk a little bit about the success the department has had with reestablishing some of those fish runs. Just what level of success has there been?
Well, to give you an idea, today the steelhead, the A run, those are primarily the salmon river fish, fish that are one ocean fish, stay in the ocean 1 year, run between 5 and 8 pounds or so. Last year we had probably the finest run in the previous 10 years. This year, well, last year at this time the run was about 44,000 fish. This year the run over Bonneville has exceeded about 83,000 fish as of today. We feel in projection that we could have 150,000 A-run fish over. And that doesn't count the B runs that are primarily the Middle Fork of the salmon fish and clearwater fish. So we may have one of the largest runs in history this year, in recorded history. It just may happen. And those are the kind of successes that we want to show the people.
The Northwest Power Planning Council, of course, is in the process now of drafting a plan to further push along the restoration of these runs. The council has said all along throughout this process that the major thing necessary is cooperation among a lot of desperate groups with different sorts of interests, local and state and federal agencies and state governments and all sorts of people, Indian tribes. Is that level of cooperation coming together, you think?
It's increasing. It hasn't hit the apex yet, but it's increasing year by year. We're making better agreements, and we're having better consultations with the various user groups, the Indians, for example, and the white commercial fishermen, and with the states of Oregon and Washington, with the Bonneville Power Administration, and so forth. And the Corps of Engineers, can't leave the Corps of Engineers out because they've played an important role in this. So we've come from the lows of blaming Idaho Power. I can't leave Idaho Power out of it either. Idaho Power and the Corps of Engineers for all of our troubles, to the point now where they're working with us. And I think that says a lot. It's not to say we don't have our family disputes, but it's working better every year. And I think we could, the proof is the fact that the runs are better every year too.
And I would assume that you have lessened the controversy with Indian tribes, particularly in the north central part of the state. A couple years ago there were some very explosive, potentially explosive situations there.
Right.
Is that settled?
Well, I don't know if it'll be settled forever, but right now it's the problems are at an all-time low, and we hope to keep them there. And you know, quite frankly, the Indians will have the first crack at those salmon, and that's the way we're managing that. We hope to have a surplus of salmon so that the other sportsmen in the state can have a crack at them. And right now, though, we're doing our very best to bring those runs back for everybody's use.
How long before they will be back for everyone's use in any meaningful way?
You know, we had people predicting that the steelhead would never come back, that we'd better, in fact, I got a letter the other day, I don't know where the guy has been, saying that why waste your time on steelhead because they'll never come back. He must have been hiding or out of state for the last 5 years, but we're having people say that right now with salmon, saying give up on the salmon, do something else. Raise trout, raise salmon, or raise steelhead, do this, that, and the other thing. But it took about 10 or 15 years to get the steelhead program really going. And it may take another decade to get the salmon going. But I wouldn't lose hope because we're making progress. And in fact, I think we're going to have a report tomorrow showing that there has been a slight amount of progress made in the last 2 years with the salmon runs, with our potential salmon runs, because the return of jacks this year was exceptionally good.
Taking a slightly different area, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recently filed some charges against people for trading in raptors, birds of prey. Is that becoming a serious problem in Idaho?
Well, no arrests have been made in Idaho. We have an exceptionally fine group of sportsmen interested in hunting with raptors in Idaho, and they've been a strong group and above the board group, and we just haven't had that problem here. So no, I can't say it's been a problem in Idaho, but it has been in other parts of the country.
Solomon, I think you have, I believe, suggested perhaps we need a process of licensing, the breeders of raptors?
Well, they already are licensed, and they have very strong regulations, federal and state regulations, on the people that like to hunt the raptors. Now, we may consider by September or October the artificial breeding of raptors. And we feel, at least a few people feel, such as I, that if we allow people to raise these raptors, breed them artificially, that it'll do several things. Number one, it will enhance the science of raising raptors out of the wild. And secondly, it takes the incentive for these people to take these birds out of the wild and domesticate them and train them. So, for example, the Peregrine Fund is fortunately a self-destruct organization that was so successful in reintroducing peregrine falcons to the east that they're going to self-destruct in a couple of years. And we need to enhance the science, the genetics, the breeding of these birds so that we can reintroduce birds like the peregrine in other parts of the country. where the populations were decimated by DDT and other environmental factors. And I feel that by passing such a law in Idaho, as they've done in several other states, that we can promote that type of science and that type of push to get these birds back into the wild.
Is Idaho's base population of those birds secure now, or do we still have plenty to worry about in terms of
I think Idaho is one of the better states in terms of the base population of raptors. In fact, you know, we have one of the few places in the United States where we have the ultimate protection, such as in the Birds of Prey National Park. So we feel that that Idaho has done a very fine job in that respect.
Right. Let me ask you, in the time that has elapsed since the tragic death of 2 of your officers in the line of duty, there's been a lot of talk about the safety of those officers in the field and whether they're adequately trained and prepared for what they might encounter. Have you made some changes, or are you more confident today that those officers are better able to better equipped to take care of themselves, I guess, in any kind of situation they might encounter?
Yes, I believe that they are. There's been some retraining and rethinking on that subject. Right now we have a policy where they have to wear a sidearm. It was optional before. And also we feel that we've trained them in kind of a person-on-person science where they can understand the people that they have to serve out in the field maybe a little bit better. We feel that in doing so, we're protecting those officers. And I think that they're being a little more cautious than ever before. And I think that the level of recruitment is an all-time high. For every applicant for one of those positions, or for every person put on, there's several hundred applicants.
Right.
We're just taking the very best.
We've got about 45 seconds left. Let me ask you about one final thing. Some are proposing that the commission ought to be expanded to allow for a permanent member of Native American population, an Indian member on the commission. Is that a good idea?
Well, I don't have any objection to it. It may be a good idea. They would have to serve the people of Idaho and the sportsmen of Idaho just as the other commissioners have served it, not served just any one particular group. But it doesn't mean because he or she is an Indian that they would particularly serve one group. They'd have to keep in mind that they're here to protect the fish and game.
Well, Mr. Stonebreaker, it's good of you to join us tonight. We appreciate talking to you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our time for tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow night. I'm Mark Johnson. Good night.
Funding for Idaho Reports is provided by the Friends of 4, 10, and 12, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by a grant from the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation.